Dale bien exótica como fuera de Island. Dale mami baila, dale mami baile. Si no le gusta baila, yo. Dale mami baila, está bien rica mami baila. Estás bien rica mami baila. Está bien rica mami baila. Uy, dale baila quien baila. Está bien rica mami baila. Dale bien exótica como fuera de Island. Dale mami baila, si no le. Dale mami baila, está bien rica mami baila. Estás bien rica mami baila. Está bien rica mami baila. Uy, dale baila quien baila. Está bien rica mami baila. Dale bien exótica como fuera de Island. Dale mami baila, si no le gusta baila, you know a quien baila. Está bien rica mami baila. Dale bien exótica como fuera de Island. Dale mami baila, si no le gusta baila, you baila. Está bien rica mami baila. Estás bien rica mami baila. Está bien rica mami baila. Estás bien rica mami baila. Tú sabes bien cómo se baila. Mueve lo que te atrás, baila. Tú sabes bien cómo se baila. Entonces dale atrás, baila. Tú sabes bien cómo se baila. Mueve lo que te atrás, baila. Tú sabes bien cómo se baila. Entonces dale atrás, baila. 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 Dale mami baila, está bien rica mami baila. Estás bien rica mami baila. Está bien rica mami baila. Uy, dale baila quien baila. Está bien rica mami baila. Dale bien exótica como fuera de Island. Dale mami baile, si no le gusta baila, yo. Dale mami baila, está bien rica mami baila. Estás bien rica mami baila. Está bien rica mami baila. Uy, dale baila quien baila. Está bien rica mami baila. Dale bien exótica como fuera de Island. Dale mami baile, si no le gusta baila, yo rica mami baila. Tú sabes bien cómo se baila. Mueve lo que te atrás, baila. Tú sabes bien cómo se baila.
Okay, we are trying to get live. If anyone are trying to get live, if you can see us somewhere, leave a comment and let us know if you can hear us. And we'll start really soon. We're experimenting.
Okay, Paulino, I can see you, but I can't see me. Is that just because I wasn't talking?
Right.
Oh, there we go. Yes. Okay.
Now it's both of us.
Yay!
Yay. Okay. So we're experimenting, folks. We're experimenting with whatever is happening in the world, but also today we're experimenting with Facebook Live. So hello, everyone. Hola, Martina.
Hola, Paulino. It's so good to be here with you.
Awesome. And how are you doing today?
Oh, I am okay. I'm feeling a little bit stressed out. I'm heading to the Actful conference in a couple days here. And anytime that I leave home, it's just a lot. So yeah, how about you?
Well, I'm not going to Artful, so I'm okay.
That's okay. At least
I'm
we get to
okay.
be here together.
Yes, yes. We are here and we have some exciting news to share that people can learn more at Artful if they want, but they can also learn here. And what are we learning about today? I think our backgrounds.
Well, actually, Paulino, this made me think though, actually, before we say what that is, I feel like, well, we've got to introduce ourselves. So first of all, my name is Martina Bex. I wrote the Somos curriculum. And that's what the group is about. So that's why I'm here. Paulino, I don't even remember how we originally got connected, I guess on Twitter and conferences, but can you give for everyone watching, you have done so many different projects with the Comprehensible Classroom and with Garbanzo, but who are you?
So I'm originally from Argentina. So I guess Martina, Argentina, the Inas got us together.
Yes.
But there are two questions, I guess, two main questions that people ask me when they meet me. One is if I play basketball because I am 6'6", and the answer is no. And the other is, why Minnesota? Why do I live in Minnesota? And the answer is Concordia Language Villages. I came to teach my language, Spanish, and my culture at Concordia Language Villages many years ago, more than 20 years ago. And here I am. I stayed, and besides being a language teacher, now focused on teaching Spanish. In Argentina, I was teaching English. I'm also a performer, an actor, an entrepreneur, and I always have this energy to combine all this passion. I love technology. So I guess I'm a busy bee, and I like to combine my passion in many different ways. And so I love teaching in the classroom, but I also love creating different opportunities and experiences for people to learn languages.
It is just a total delight for me to know you, Paulino, and I feel like you always have some new project up your sleeves, and we will start talking about the story builders, but I do want to mention Adquisición en el Aula. So for anybody who maybe saw some of the posts from Paulino or from me, you have a podcast with Nellie Hughes that you started this fall, at the end of the summer. That's talking about language acquisition and teaching for acquisition in Spanish, which is just an incredible resource. So that's another one of your, I don't know if you have anything quick to say about that, and then we can start talking about story builders, I promise.
Well, yeah. So there are many podcasts out there for language acquisition, which is great. What I guess was missing is something specifically in Spanish, because although I am in the United States, I am connected with many people who speak English. I'm also connected with people in Europe and Latin America who might not have access to the same type of materials we do in English. So one of my hope is to spread the word about acquisition-driven instruction in Spanish, and the podcast is one of those places.
I completely love it. I think it's so helpful because, I mean, for me, I learned Spanish while I'm listening to it, because I read in Spanish on a lot of different topics, but not about language teaching. So I totally love it. But we are not here to talk about adquisición en el aula, although maybe another time we can do that and have Nellie on here as well. Tonight, we are here to talk about StoryBuilder. That's it, something else. StoryBuilder Plus, which is a resource that Paulino created. As he said, he has so many different talents and he always has ideas. So many of you watching are probably familiar with our StoryBuilder resources. This was something that I developed during the pandemic shutdown. I was trying to think of a way that teachers could recreate the process of story asking for their students asynchronously. So with the help of a lot of our team members, we built out all of these different interactive slides presentations in which students start reading a story, and then as they read along, they're faced with different choices, and they can choose the path that the main character takes through the story. So as they read through the story, they might end up with one of 20 or 30 or 40 different versions of the stories that they read. So Paulino saw this StoryBuilder, as an interactive slides presentation, and he thought, aha, I can one up you. I shouldn't say one up. I could plus that. And so he started creating StoryBuilder plus StoryBuilder plus Forms Edition. So Paulino, tell us, what is a StoryBuilder plus Forms Edition, and how is it different than just that plain old StoryBuilder presentation that comes with every Flex unit?
Yes, so we, StoryBuilders, stories create a nice map and image in our minds, and those maps and connections help with meaning, help with compelling information, help us create a mental representation of the language, compelling input. We do stories all the time when we talk to people. Right now we have this video, it's a story, but in the World Language Classroom, we start with some fictional stories to capture students' imagination. And of course that we support all those words and stories with images, because images speak more than 1,000 words, something like that. So in this case, we are on video. So images are 1,000 words, videos maybe 10,000, I don't know. But I'm gonna show you a little bit the transformation. So Martina talked about the StoryBuilder that comes with the Flex curriculum. And it's a Google slide. It looks like this. So now I'm looking at the editing version, but if I try to go through the story, I click and I'm reading the story, and at some point in the story, I might have a option like this. So in this case, Jalen tiene un hermano, tiene una novia y tiene un problema. And now I can choose if the problem is a su hermano le gusta Rebecca or Rebecca tiene un secreto. Chan, chan, chan. We don't know. So whatever we click, we are creating the story in a way, because now we are making two paths, and those paths will keep moving in one direction or another. So
they work like, just for anybody that's familiar with choose your own adventure stories, these are designed to work in that same way. So if you loved reading choose your own adventure books as a kid, that's how this StoryBuilder works.
Yeah, one of the things with the Google Slides, which are great, you can have different paths, is that the Google Slides, the product doesn't remember where you were. So I can go to any slide, and if you get out of order, or if you click somewhere else, or even if you do complete a story, it doesn't remember. And when we were in the pandemic, I wanted to give this to my students for them to do on their own. And some of them have trouble writing the story as they were doing it. So I thought, what if I use a Google form that also give you the ability to have a choice and jump to that part of the story, but the Google form does remember where it goes. So you can trace all those options and create the story.
I didn't realize, Paulino, I didn't realize that was one of your original purposes behind it. And I think that is so important, because, in a class, when you create a story with your students, then as the teacher, you can do something like a write and discuss, or you can just discuss together like, oh yeah, let's remember together what happened in the story. But if that story only lives in the mind of one student that read it one time, and sometimes those stories are very long, if they want to go back and read it again, like, oh my gosh, that story was so funny, or, for whatever reason, it would be pretty difficult to retrace the steps. So having that form to just lock that in for students so that they can go back and enjoy it again is so smart.
And sometimes we tell our students, we tell our students that they can be writing the story as they go along, but they don't like to write.
No.
They don't like to write. That's that's part of the reality. That's part of the reality. They don't like to write, but they like to say hello. Talking about saying hello, I see Nicoletta, Megan, Shannon, Sandra watching us. Hello to all of you and to everybody else watching us. We are live. We are live. And so this is what happened. I said, in order to put it in the Google form, I needed to make a map of it so I could see what's happening. So this is what happened in my brain. From these Google Slides, I make it into this map.
I can't even believe it. When you showed me that, I was like, what?
What is that? Well, those are the little path of the story. We start with the green, which is the introduction of the character, and then just go into different options, and it grows and it grows and it grows. And all the yellow ones are the ends. It's like when the story comes to some kind of close. So once I map it all out, and the other thing is, mapping is also a creative process because I didn't want to be all the same endings. So I started adding some text using the same vocabulary or the same main core vocabulary. I started adding some endings. So we come up, or I came up with many different versions of the story, not just the same, all the same vocabulary in the form.
The original StoryBuilder, the stories, many of the stories loop back into themselves. So even if there's, there might be 8 different ways to get to the same ending. So part of the amazing resource that Paulino's offering with this StoryBuilder Plus is that now you don't just get my creativity and the creativity of the people that worked on the original StoryBuilders, you get Paulino's creativity with all of these new endings as well, which is so fun. I was working on a project related to this recent in the last couple of weeks, and was reading through every single story that Paulino wrote, all 189. I've got to go to that slide. All 189 of them. So 189 stories, which was just so fun. So 5 stories.
Margot Gillen says, this is such an amazing product. Well, but wait. Well, because I think people are familiar with the StoryBuilder Plus, but now we'll tell them a little more of what's in store. Judy Mary Bodin also says that the forms are amazing. And Donna asked, how long are the story? Well, that's a great question, Donna, because that depends on the choices that they make. And the truth is that sometimes the choices are few, and sometimes the choices are many. Sometimes in 2 choices, you get to the end of the story, and sometimes you have 5 choices to get to the end of the story. So it really depends. It really depends. So what I always tell my students, oh, you thought the story was short? Go back and start over and make other choices, because in each of these 5 different StoryBuilder forms, there is at least 28 different versions. That's the lowest. The lowest is 28. That's one of them. Yeah. But there is another one that has 44 different versions.
I think there's one with 48.
Oh, 48.
I think I remember 48. Yes. Which is crazy.
I lost count. So let me show you, for people who might see, what does it look like? Well, this is what it looks like. So after that map that I create a form, and the form, this is what a teacher would see, which these forms are big. And I would caution people, teachers, to open and try to modify these because they are, there's a lot of connections that go into it. But for example, things that usually people would modify is just modify the settings. For example, when I make a copy, I make sure that the setting is for students in my own district and things like that. This is what the teachers see. This is what teachers potentially could modify if needed. I usually just touch on the settings and that's it. But this is what the students see. So just since we're here, I'm just going to remind people that we don't send this link. If we can see the questions and we can see that we can edit, we don't send this link to students. We click on send link. I usually like to shorten it so that it looks a little nicer. Copy, that's the link we send to students. And it will look something like this. It will have the title. The students will enter their email, and the reason for that is that they can receive their choices. So not only they are creating, but also when they submit, they get their choices. So I'm gonna put my
So when
email
we were
here.
saying that it's so sad with the original StoryBuilder that like once the story's done, it's done. What Paulino has created is a way for students to receive a copy of the story that they created. In video form.
In video form.
We'll get to that.
So here is here's an example, and when I'm looking at that, someone is already asking, we are a Microsoft district, can we still use this form? Oh no, everybody look at Martina's face. You have to say something so the camera goes to you.
I'm really sorry. This form does not work with Microsoft. But we did just add a whole bunch of resources that even if you can't use the form, you can still access all of the videos and all of the stories. So I'll say that preview, and then we'll circle back to that, and I'll show you what you can do with this resource if you're a Microsoft district.
Yes, so the forms are Google Forms. They're not Microsoft. Okay, let's do quickly one story so that people can see what the experience is for the students.
Let's do it.
I'm a student. I wrote the name.
I don't know how much of a delay we have. If we don't have too bad of a delay, we could have everybody making the choices. We could try that out maybe.
The way I'll do it as I do it in my classroom, because this is the thing. Usually, like people do with the original form, the original StoryBuilder, you usually do one with the students, and I do too. Even with the form, I do one with the students so they can see, even though the video explains what to do, I usually do one with my students so they can see the process. So here we go. So I'm going to be the teacher and you're going to be the student. Hola, Martina.
Hola, maestro.
Vamos a ver una historia.
Una historia, wow.
Sí, Chris es una persona, es una muchacha, como Martina es una muchacha.
Yo soy una muchacha, como Chris.
Pero un día, Chris está en un restaurante, está en un parque o está en su apartamento.
En un parque.
Está en un parque. So we tell students to click and then click next. Don't forget that next. Nothing happens if you just click there. You need to click next. Está en un parque. Chris está en el parque ¿con quién está en el parque, Martina? ¿Con su perro o con un mago?
Con un mago.
Con un mago. Chan, chan, chan. Está con un mago. Chris y el mago se sientan en un banco o ven un conejo mutante.
¡Ven un conejo mutante!
Oh no, un conejo mutante. And this is the end of story 5. So you see, we went through 4 or 5 clicks, and we have, this is one of the very first story builders. So these stories are a little shorter.
Yes,
I'm
these
gonna
are
show
much
you,
shorter than some of
these
the other
are
ones.
much shorter, but this is just because we wanted to do a quick example.
Yes.
But we're going to show you the length. We're going to show you the length of other stories that are longer, because someone asked us how,
Donna wanted to know.
Donna, if there are 2 or 5 story choices, what is the range of numbers of word per story? So Chris se sienta is one of the first stories. So they are very short, but I'm going to show you an example of others, and you'll see that much longer. But in this case, at the end, they will see the full story. They can read it again. The full story is there. They are numbered because each StoryBuilders Plus have many stories, so we know which number it is. And below, they can also click on a video and ta-da! Cris es una persona. Es una muchacha.
And so you can see too in the form, on that last slide of the form, it filled in the rest of the story. Like it filled in the ending that came with the choices we made.
Yes.
Sorry.
So the stories here in text form is also in video form. And we're going to ask students to submit, and they will get an email with all the choices they made. And the last choice will include the text and the video. So after they read it and they went through all the choices, they can read the full story they created by making choices. They can listen and watch the video. They also get it on an email. And we have two versions of this form because some teachers want to have a little bit of accountability, not just the reading. So we have a version A that is just what you saw. It ends there. Nothing else happened. And a version B that only adds one question. It says, write 3 or 5 sentences in English of what you remember of the story, just to give them a little bit of accountability.
So if the student was just clicking through, then at the end, they have to at least watch the video to be able to pull out those facts so that you know that there's some level of they're definitely paying attention or following along. So Paulino, before we before we go on to the next thing, I want to show really quick. So the person that asked about the Microsoft Teams. So unfortunately, the form, it just is way too complex it would not work in Microsoft Teams. So that's just in Google Forms. Someone also asked about French, and until we find a French Paulino, we're not going to be able to have it in French. But I mean, Paulino also, so there's 5 different resources that we have. We have 5 different stories. We have Farah, we have Jalen, we have Chris, we have, let's see, Ramesh, and we have one other person. There's 5 different main characters. Paul. Okay, so there's 5 different stories, 5 stories about 5 different people. How many hours, just so that people can know, like, just what it took to go into creating this, how many hours would you estimate that it took you to working on these forms?
That is such a great question. And I do this over several days, sometimes many hours a day, sometimes I dedicate a whole weekend. Mm-hmm. I think I told you about around 60, but it's probably more like, it's probably a little more than 60 hours per StoryBuilder. Because imagine, first of all, I start with the base that you already have, but because I create all these different versions of stories, then the packages or StoryBuilders also includes a slideshow for each of the story that you could use if you want. So I have to create those, and those I create those for 2 purposes: one, to give to teachers, but also to create the videos. So I was counting images because then I had, of course I repeat images, but I have to handle about 200 images per StoryBuilder, because it's like the image of the selection, the image of the 2 choices, the images of the different stories. So it adds up in a lot of complexity, and I get a little crazy sometimes, but it takes at least 60 hours per StoryBuilder. And Jacob is asking how are we dispersing this to the students. I mentioned that the link, he says, can be emailed, but can you post the form on Google Classroom? Yes, you can. Just like you do any other form, or you get that link to from the form and you post it on Google Classroom. That's correct.
I'm just
Margot asked, so there are 5 original forms that could make more than 189 stories?
Yeah, that's exactly right, Margot. So I just dropped the link into the bundle. So you can buy each one of these resources that Paulino has created on its own. We just increased the price on them because we just added the thing that I'm going to tell you about in just a minute. But you can buy the full bundle, all 5 different story groups of stories, I guess. That includes 189 stories, and it's $50 for the full thing. So you get the form for each one of those, but what we just added, so Paulino had, I think he told me like 60 to 100 hours per story builder. So, I mean, this is not something that any teacher would ever just like take on to do for their own class. I mean, this is really the benefit that comes with like getting just for us being able to partner with you, Paulino, and to be able to share this resource with teachers that is just not something that someone could do on their own. So first we have the form, and then we just added printable versions of all of the stories because just like, I'm scrolling back up. Whoever it was, Amina said, okay, I'm in Microsoft district. We're like, man, we feel so bad for the Microsoft district. We don't feel like it because you have a great product that you're working with, but we aren't able to support you in getting this product. So how could we help you? So what we did was we took every single one of the stories, every video that Paulino has, and we turned it into a printable version. And like, seriously, Paulino, I think that even just creating this was like another 60 hours of work for us. We had a couple different people on our team working on it to get all of these done. But so you have, you can print out all 189 stories. Paulino printed it out from his library, but they're at school. I have just one of the stories here. This is a book I've got bound for ACTPO, but you can just see all of these different versions. This is the Farah story builder. So you can see there's some similarities between stories just from looking at the pictures, but different things are happening along the way. So these are all the same core story. And what we did was we added at the bottom of each printable, we added a QR code that will take students to the video that Paulino made for it. So all of Paulino's videos are hosted in a super secret special spot on YouTube. And usually you can only access them through the StoryBuilder form, but we popped the QR codes on there so that if you want to, you can print these out, these 189 different stories. Your students can go into your class library, or you can distribute them in your class. They can scan in the QR code, or you can watch the videos while students are reading. We also provided a version of these printables that doesn't include the QR codes in case you don't want your kids on YouTube in the middle of class.
Okay, so Wendy is asking, is it possible to see a preview of the video version, or I guess one of the videos? I'm gonna do a meta video on video. I created a cute video for TikTok, so I'm gonna share it now. So I wanted more distribution. But it will show you. I printed all. I forgotten to bring them home, but you can see them in my classroom. The 5 folders with all the stories that I printed. I didn't print on color because it's very expensive, but let me show you this for a second so we can rest our voices for 1 minute and we can then answer more questions. So let's get to this.
My Spanish 1 students are not ready to read mini novels yet. What can I do? Start with short stories, like these ones from the Comprehensible Classroom. Look at this bundle with more than 180 stories. Not just stories, but also interactive Google Forms for students to create their stories. But wait, there is more. Each story comes with its own video recorded by a native speaker. Students receive the video from the Google form or from the QR code in the printed version. Try it. My Spanish.
Paulino, you'll have to put the link to that video in the comments so that folks can pull that up afterward and then use that QR code that comes up on the screen. You'll have to have your phone ready to scan it on your computer screen, but then
yes, I will do that. But also in that that's a tweet that has the video, is the link to an article that everything we are saying to you today in the video is on printed form with some ideas of activities and lesson plan, because Martina is very organized that way, wants to make the teachers' lives easier. And in that post, there is a video embedded that people can watch as well.
Yeah, and we need to talk about that. But first, I want to talk really quick about the benefits. So, Paulino, you said in your in the mid of video, you said, if your students aren't ready to read full-length novels yet, students, I won't say they can't, but they can't go from not reading to reading a novel. They need to slowly build their stamina. Kids experience this in their first language, and we experience it with our second language and all additional languages. We need to build up our stamina for reading in another language. So we start out, if you're using the SOMOS curriculum, the first things that students read are just a couple sentences long, and they gradually build that up. These story builders are a great bridge to having the stamina to being able to read chapters and full-length novels that are written for language learners. The vocabulary is sheltered. So each one of these story builders is based on a story script from the curriculum. So the story about Chris is the story from Unit 6. The vocabulary is sheltered. So we're using a really limited set of vocabulary. And when we bring in words that we don't expect students to already know, we tell them what those words mean. We use images, like Paulino said, to support their understanding. We use repetition in the stories. So there's oftentimes the story is a little bit cyclical, like the characters trying to solve a problem. This comes from the TPRS, the Teaching Proficiency Through Reading and Storytelling model developed by Brener, where the plot is repetitive. And then within the repetition of the plot, we're also repeating vocabulary. And that's really important because, let's see if I can get my good link up here. Repetition of vocabulary is something that's really important for language acquisition. Alan Badley is a psychologist. He said for the greatest effectiveness in terms of language acquisition, learners should have repeated exposures to a word over time, but those initial repetitions, when they're first exposed to that word, those repetitions should be close together and then more spaced out over time. So when your students read a story, they're going to be seeing the same set of words over and over and over. And then as they continue to read the other story builder or the other story builders, the same words are recycled across story builders and they build on each other so that repetition is happening over time. I have a bunch of other benefits of these, Paulino, but I feel like we're going to end up going over time. So maybe we should just talk about instruction and I won't talk more about the benefits. What do you think?
Excellent. Perfect. So I mentioned that Martina, you put together a great blog post with a collaboration with many people, and we can also drop that link in the chat or in the comments because there people have been doing with stories in general anything they want, and with these stories in particular different kinds of activities. But in this post, in this blog post that is in the Comprehensible Classroom blog, you not only have an explanation of what the product is and how is it different, but you can see an example. Here's a video someone was asking for one of the videos. That's one of the shortest one. And also here are different activities that you can do. You can use still standing. There are many animals and choices and students objects that are in all the different stories. So everybody can stand up. All students go to the form once and only once on their own. You put it on the projector and then start with all students standing and begin reading the story and choosing your own path through the story. Yeah. Perhaps
so I love this any kind of a thing that gives students a little bit of movement in this one, like you, the teacher, you're reading a version of the story, and then students are identifying whether the version that you're reading matches the one that they have read, either in the form or if they have a printed version in front of them, by standing up. And then as soon as your story starts to divert from theirs, they sit down. And at the end, you see if somebody had the same one as you.
Great. So you have activities like find the elephant, kind of like a scavenge and hunt, because I think there is an elephant in all the story builders, but not in all the stories. There's always an elephant.
Oh, really? Do
so-
I have one? And that's funny. I guess I do have certain things that are.
So you could have stories. Try to read different stories. Now they have the printables. They can do it on the printables or in the forms, trying to find where's the elephant. I like to play.
I'm
Yes.
sorry, Paulino. So you have also pulled out, like you said, you're working with like 200 different images for each one. So you have shared with teachers in the teaching resources folder for this product. You have like a list of different story features. So characters that appear in different stories, places that the characters go to, objects that turn up. And so you as the teacher, it doesn't have to be the elephant, but you would pick one of those things from Paulino's story features presentation, and you would say, okay, guys, go find the wizard or whatever it is.
Yes. So for example, sorry, I got lost here for a second, but let's, let me go back to the blog. So go find the elephant, and now we can do with the printed versions. I like to play 4 corners, where I give each corner one of the characters or objects or whatever I found in any of the stories, and students will move. So there is a movement to the corner. So for example, one corner is elephant, another corner is dog, etc. So students move to the corner with the elephant. If there's an elephant in their story, the students move to the corner of the dog. If there's a corner in their story, they stay seated or in the center if none of those animals were in their stories. And then from there, I can add extra questions. I can point to the corner where there was an elephant. Students read a story with an elephant, and I can say, ¿cómo era el elefante? ¿Tú tienes un elefante? ¿Tú quieres un elefante? I can PQA or ask more questions. So I invite people to go and look at these different activities that are suggested here. You will also see a video tour what you could find. There are many activities there, and also some suggestions of what could be a sequence. So Martina put together, okay, how can I use these resources as a lesson plan for 2 or 3 days, because there's so many stories and so many possibilities that you can use it for many days or for parts of class. So in this post, you can see here an example of day 1, 2, and 3, or another type of sequence where you can have some of the games described before, or some pre or post reading activities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that having these lessons written out, when you first shared this form with me, I was like, oh my word, this is amazing. And, what else can we do with it? Because I think that sometimes teachers feel like, well, okay, I got this resource, but I don't want it to just be a one and done. Like I send it to students, they watch a video and whatever, but you can turn this just like anything. You can turn it into the focal content for your class for days or a week. Because all of the content is there. I mean, just having 48 different versions of a single story, and then having that opportunity to discuss with your students, to connect with them. I was just doing some research on, I'm not sure if this is how you say it because I was just reading it, but dialogic reading. But this idea is something that, that I do with my own kids, where you're reading something and then you discuss it together and all of the benefits that come along with it. So being able to give students the opportunity to read something that they understand. Here's this, I've got to get this quote. Stephen Krashen famously said, we acquire language when we understand messages, when we understand what people tell us, and when we understand what we read. It's not just reading that helps us to acquire language. it's reading things that we understand. And these story builders aim to do that. So having that reading and understanding experience, and then being able to talk about it together and create connections between the readers and the stories, giving them the autonomy. Paulino, that was something that you were talking about in our conversations, was just the ability to be in control, to be like the director of the story. It essentially places them in the story as a character, just like the invisible puppet master, right?
Yeah, talking about puppet masters, so I've been kind of being the puppet master in creating this product all behind the scenes. But Roxana Garcia is asking, do you guys have anything like this for Spanish 3 and 4? Well, yeah, all these story builders are based on Somos 1 curriculum. Someone also asked if this is for Somos 1 or for Flex. This is separate, and you can, whether you're using Somos 1 or the original Somos or Somos Flex, it doesn't matter. It's not included in any of those. This is separate, but it follows the same core vocabulary. So you can use it with any of those curriculums that you're using. But my answer to Roxana for Spanish 3 and 4 would be the following. One is, I really enjoy watching my IB students reading the lower level, what we would call the beginner novels. El capibara con botas, Berto quiere un perro, whatever. Something simple. I enjoy looking at them being calm and relaxed and enjoying the act of reading and nothing else. Not reading because I'm gonna do an IB exam or connections. I think it's a really treasure when they get to that state that they enjoy the reading the same way they would enjoy the reading in their first language or common language. So I use the same with I use the same stories with my IB students. I don't have IB this year, but I did it with my heritage students because I like the fact that they could choose stories, right? Now the reading is super simple for Spanish 3 or 4 or for heritage, but they like the idea of choosing stories. What I modified is, what do we do with, now that we have these texts that we enjoy, we have this base and framework, what do we do? The extension activities are at their level. So my heritage students, they have to switch a character and rewrite what happens with the story when, instead of having the good wizard, we have the bad wizard. Or when we add something in the story, like a tornado goes through, what happens? How does the story change? And they have to rewrite. So now they have to do the creative process. And talking about creative process,
I was just gonna, sorry, you beat me to it. I was like, speaking of.
I was leading to it. Da, 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 da. Talking about creative process, once my students have done many of these, they kind of know how it works from the reading point of view. I introduce them to the writing process. And as of now, I don't know how long we're gonna keep it, but for now, when people buy this new bundle of this 5 StoryBuilder Plus, you will also get templates to do your own story builder. And when I said your own, I'm not really talking about you as a teacher, although you can, but I do it with my students. I put all my work to do this for the students, but I also do it with my students. Let me show you what that looks like a little bit. So basically what you get is templates, these colorful templates that I can give to students to create the path. So they will start with the box 1, introducing the character, and box 2 and 3 are 2 choices. And this could be done on any level. So for example, in the story builders we have right now, maybe there is 1 sentence and a choice, another sentence and a choice. And my IB students have to write a paragraph and 2 choices, a paragraph and 2 choices. So there's more text, right? So this is an example of the template to create a story builder, to plan it. This is to plan it if you're going to use a Google form, and this is to plan it if you're going to use Google Slides. Not only that, I already have here, if you see, the template of the Google Slides themselves and the form itself. Remember that I told you that the form, it's a lot of selecting where's it going to go. Well, you can use this form and make copies for your students, and all they have to go do is what they wrote on slide on number 1, on box 1, they're going to write it on texto uno. And then it has 2 options. You get the options from the planning, from option 2 and 3. Those are the options. They go into the form. So the form is already created. You see, if you click here, it says here, if they click on the option 2, it will go to another section of the form. It's already programmed or set up so that the form will already work. You just need to put the information that you use to create in the planning stage.
Mhm.
So if for people who are interested in doing this with their students, they get all these templates, both for planning and also for the actual production of the story builder. So as an example of a real project, my IB students develop these stories at a little lower level, and usually production takes a little lower level for my Spanish 2 students. So
That's
then
so
my
fun.
Spanish 2 students have not 2 story builders, they have 15 story builders to choose from and do more reading. So that is a bonus for this bundle for a while.
And Paulino is, you can get that separately. So Paulino has that in his own Teachers Pay Teachers store. And so if you are, perhaps you teach French, or you otherwise wouldn't be able to make use of all of the resources in the bundle, you could still get that creator. And what I love about that is that, so the very first resource of this style that I created was when I was teaching, and maybe someone in the group can, I don't even remember what it's in, Somos 2 unit 4 or 6. It's La Novia Desaparecida. So I created that when I was teaching, and my students had so much fun with it. And they were like, we want to make one. We want to make one. And so I was like, yeah. And we started on the process, and it was one of the biggest train wreck lessons I have ever done, because I just had doing what I did in my head and then trying to figure out how to facilitate that for students was impossible. So the fact that you took this, you simplified, streamlined that process, you gave folks a template to do with their students is so great. And I just imagine it would be so much fun now to go back to being in my classroom with my students, to have your template. And what I would do is walk through that together with them. Like I would split them into groups, and we'd start the story together. And then I'd say, okay, every group has to come up with the next thing. And that way it's still that shared writing experience. So I'm kind of like the puppet master of the input. I'm making sure that they're saying things that make sense, and it's that shared creative writing process. But at the end, to have these amazing resources that the students created on their own, and to share those with other classes, I think is just so cool. So what an awesome bonus that you put together, Paulino. Your mind, your mind just amazes me, the things that you come up with.
Thank you very much. And I want to respect your time and my time, and we are getting up to the hour, although we started a little late, but again, still, we kind of plan to be here until 9 p.m. for you, 8 p.m. for me. So before we leave, I would like to make sure if people have more questions about this product, what would be the best way to reach out to you to ask you questions?
So the best way to reach out always about product questions is to contact support@comprehensibleclassroom.com. When you email support, your email is ticketed, and you know that it's going to get a response eventually. If you leave it on the Facebook comments, we don't always get those notifications. So the best thing to do is to email support@comprehensibleclassroom.com. Yes, and CYOA is choose your own adventure, and their term is trademarked, so that's why we try not to use it in general, but it's that same style of a story. And this just takes Paulino's resource, makes it digital and interactive. I'm just typing one thing. So I'm going to drop the link one more time to the bundle in the comments. The stories that are included in that bundle go along with Somos 1 Unit 2, Somos 1 Unit 4, Somos 1 Unit 5, Somos 1 Unit 6, and Somos 1 Unit 8. You do not need to be teaching those units. You don't need to be using Somos to enjoy these. They're stories that are written with high frequency vocabulary. If you are teaching those units, then it'll be extra comprehensible for your students, because they'll already have that specific vocabulary fresh in their minds. But yeah. Oh no, speaking of la novia desaparecida, ahora tenemos el Paulino desaparecido.
Yeah. So funny thing about life, my mouse just died.
Oh no. Wait,
I know.
like during this live?
No.
Your
my
mouse. It's like, I didn't know you had a pet mouse, and then I thought that it just died during this live. And then it would be a Facebook dead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to scare anybody, but yes, this mouse just died during this live, so we'll be here forever. I'll find a way to end this, but I can't move the mouse.
Oh, that's so funny. Okay, wow, I'm so glad that
while I find the cable to charge the mouse, so I can.
Okay, we're gonna be here all night, folks. This is fate, Paulino. We're never gonna be gone. Yeah. Let's see. I'll scroll back up and see if we have any more questions. Yeah, I think it's total gold. I am so excited about it. And then I've been having this moment all week, because we ordered all of these sample books to have at Actful. And a lot of times, like, I create products and I don't ever get to see them printed out. And so just to see like how thick this StoryBuilder, like to have 43 different stories, is just amazing. So I'm super excited about this right now, and so grateful to Paulino for having this amazing idea and being willing to take this on. And thank you to everyone who has invested in this product so far, because like we said, it's so many hours for Paulino, and for him to keep working on these. What's the expression I'm looking for? I don't know. Whatever. We're so grateful.
I resuscitated my mouse, so we can end the live. I have someone asked about level. Would this work with Garbanzo and younger kids?
So this is totally separate from Garbanzo. Garbanzo is its own platform. There are some of these single storylines are in Garbanzo, so you'll find stories that are like these stories in Garbanzo, but this does not depend on Garbanzo. It does not come with Garbanzo, anything like that. For younger kids, Paulino, what would you say? I think just from a technology standpoint, you could totally share with younger kids the videos, but I don't know that the form would be great for like under sixth grade.
Right. It depends what do you mean with younger kids. I have done creating stories with fourth and fifth grade in computers, giving them a template, but not StoryBuilder. I have used StoryBuilders to limit the choices. So instead of being an open StoryBuilder, I use the StoryBuilder, whether the form or the original, as a screen. I would say it would only be kind of to support the teacher. Maybe every day you do a different story, but I don't think it would be to give to the kids. I think it would be too much for younger ones. But
Yeah.
middle school, definitely. High school, definitely. And Anne asked, will it still be on sale at the end of the month because of the paycheck?
It is not on sale right now. It's just at its normal bundle price. So when you go to TPT and you see the red slash through price, that's just because Paulino and I were like, you know what? We want to get this whole bundle, all of the stories in teachers' hands. So when you buy it as a bundle, you get a discount price that's always discounted. So it'll be the same price at the end of the month. I don't know if you wait for like a Cyber Monday sale, which usually happens, you might get a more bigger discount, but I don't know if that's happening or not.
Okay. And Ashley wants to know if you will be able to rewatch the video. Yes, you can rewatch the video. It will stay here. if Facebook, if the gods of Facebook allows
Yeah, we'll
us.
see. They were being tricky tonight. Testy gods tonight.
Martina, I want to thank you so much because, you know, I talked about this whole process of creating, but first of all, I'm starting with your product and bringing it to another way. So thank you for allowing me to have also that platform for that creative process and also supporting me in pursuing my dreams.
It's my total joy, Paulino. That is, I mean, that is one of the best things that I get to do now. Is connect with other teachers like you that have amazing ideas and talents and being able to bring them to life. So happy to do it.
Yeah,
I hope everybody
so
has
Ashley wants to see the video. She says Ashley teaches virtual. So I think this is perfect. That's what I said at the beginning, that I started this when I was teaching virtual.
Mm-hmm.
And I just dropped my Twitter. If someone wants to follow me there and have any questions for me, I think Twitter is the most fun way to interact with me. That would be a good place if you have any questions for me. And Martina, thank you so much for this space tonight and for your time.
Yes, you too, Paulino. We'll talk soon. Thanks everyone for being here. And yeah, so email support with questions or connect with Paulino on Twitter. We would love to get you the help you need to know if this is the best fit for you. Have a good night.
And just for fun, we're going to end that with this video just because I have so much fun making it. I think it's worth showing it again.
I love this, yes.
My Spanish 1 students are not ready to read mini novels yet. What can I do? Start with short stories, like these ones from the Comprehensible Classroom. Look at this bundle with more than 180 stories. Not just stories, but also interactive Google Forms for students to create their stories. But wait, there is more. Each story comes with its own video recorded by a native speaker. Students receive the video from the Google form or from the QR code in the printed version. Try it.
Try it.
Try it. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Have a great evening. Take care.
Good night.